Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Premier League Newsroom show. I am Christian Jack, brought to you by our friends at Volkswagen. On today's show, we will recap, quite frankly, a remarkable playoff weekend where we saw a sold-out crowd in Halifax witness a brilliant game of knockout football between 3 versus 4, and another historic moment in Calgary between Cavalry and Forge, as once again we saw the Hamilton side come out as the winners to make their 5th final in 5 years. On this show, we will hear from all 4 coaches, plus the likes of Manny Aparicio, Daniil Henry, Dan Klomp, Kyle Becker, and more. First, though, we start in Nova Scotia, where Halifax Wanderers, as the team that finished 3rd, welcomed 4th place Pacific in their first ever home playoff match. We bring in our very own Charlie O'Connor-Clark, who was there for us. Charlie, great to see you as ever. Pretty special piece of CPL history once again that you witnessed firsthand. It was not your typical tense knockout match. There was lots of chances, had a little bit of everything. What was it like to witness, and how will you remember this one?
Yeah, this was quite the special day. I mean, even just before the game, being in the city of Halifax and in the lead up, it's just little things just that told me how special this day was. Like going to coffee shops and hearing people talking about it, or the radio traffic report was telling people what the best route to take is going to be to the game. It was a big game feel in Halifax, and it certainly felt like that on the day. And we can't say enough about the atmosphere in that stadium, but obviously Pacific are the ones that got the better of this game, and we're going to dive into it a bit, but it was quite a plucky and resilient performance from a Pacific team who had a lot stacked against them, to be quite frank, going into this game after playing on Wednesday night in Langford, going all the way across the country to Halifax in just a few days' time. This was like an 11 a.m. kickoff for them. And they played quite well, I thought, for large stretches of it. It pretty much went to plan for Pacific with scoring in the first half, knowing that the legs were going to tire in the second half. But so they didn't really need to open up the taps and try and find an equalizer or anything, because they did what they needed to do in the first half.
Yeah, it was an incredible game of football. I'm just watching it thinking how different it was to watching last year's playoffs, where we had a little bit more of a timid first legs between 1 and 4 instead of, and 2 and 3. This game felt so important. Obviously, covering it from the broadcast studio, you felt like what it was like. Is it fair quickly to say, Charlie, that it just meant so much more because they knew there was going to be an outcome and a resolution? It just had that big game feeling rather than a first leg of something. Halifax probably deserved that moment. I know it didn't go their way, but just that whole thing just made the entire thing bigger.
Yeah, it's very easy for footballers to get up for a game where if you win, you move on, and if you don't, you are done. Your season's over. And Halifax, obviously knowing that this was going to be the last game they played at home this year, no matter what, that maybe helped a little bit in terms of the fans getting behind them. But it was a game where every second felt like it mattered. Even in the first half, if somebody's taking a little bit too long with a throw in, there's people getting on his case, right? And really for a lot of the first half until Pacific scored, it felt like things were going fairly well for Halifax in ways. I mean, they'd give the ball away with sloppy passes, but then Pacific couldn't hold on to it at all, and Halifax would win it back somehow. And it felt like things were kind of slowly building, but then it was one of those transition moments that was exactly what Pacific were looking for in this game. And that's 2 playoff games in a row that it's Kekuta Mane who comes in from the left wing and just puts it in a dangerous area. And I feel for Zach Fernandez, who's had an incredible season in Halifax, but it's a tough moment, an unlucky moment for him, really. I don't think there's a ton that he could do to get that ball away. But sometimes that's all it takes in a cup game like that, in a playoff game, right? Where sometimes you need things to fall perfectly for you, and that's really, really how you get an advantage. And really, that's what happened for Pacific. Halifax hit the woodwork like 3 times, and there were 2 or 3 blocks off the line, and a couple great saves from Gazdov as well. It's just one of those days where the soccer gods fell on one side.
Yeah, no doubt. Small margins as ever in these kind of games. And most of the people listening to this will listen later as a podcast. But if you are joining us live, please put any questions you have in the chat. We'll get to them. Flem and Alexander, we see yours. We'll address yours shortly. And we'll get to Halifax shortly. But the story here, as you mentioned, is Pacific Football Club. They win Wednesday night at home. By then, by the way, it's already Thursday morning Atlantic time, 62 hours later, after one of the longest domestic away trips in world football. they pull off what can only be described, Charlie, as a truly incredible away win. They had a different formation that they played all season. They went with a 4-4-2 with the two big guys up front. And then even though they consistently changed it, they still kept that shape. Adonijah Reed was up there at one point with Manny Aparicio playing in the two as well. What impressed you about them being so close to this?
Yeah, it was maybe exactly what Pacific have needed, was a kind of change like this. We've seen them in the last few weeks of the regular season really being a little bit stale at times, especially in attack, because they hadn't really changed things all that much that many times, and the goals weren't necessarily falling for this team as much as maybe we're used to with all the attacking talent in this team. And really the way that they set up, I mean, when the lineups dropped about an hour before this game, I look at it and I'm like, okay, it makes sense that Mane and Reed have come into this team after what they did on Wednesday night. They're going to be a lot fresher because they came off the bench in that game. But then I noticed that Angaro's in there and Daniels is in there. So I'm like, okay, this is different. And honestly, I was a little bit surprised at how well it worked for them. I was wondering if they might have trouble in midfield with just Aparicio and Sean Young going up against the likes of Caligari and Mo Omar, and even Callum Watson was in there. But there were moments in this game, especially in the first half, where that space did open up for Halifax, kind of in behind them when maybe Aparicio got caught a little bit high up. But for the most part, it really helped Pacific get more numbers forward and create those transitional moments, which was obviously exactly what they wanted to do in this game. They knew that they didn't necessarily have the legs to possess the ball in this game, and they certainly didn't. They had like 27% possession, which I think might be a season low in the CPL for any team.
Right.
But they were able to do what they wanted to. They would get the ball forward quickly and directly. They used the pace of players like Dada Luke and Mane to get it forward and get in behind Halifax. And again, it's just they needed to create that one moment, and they did. And then they held firm for the rest of it, because there was a lot of desperation defending, obviously, at the end. I think Didic and Meir Jaguar both had double-digit clearances by the end of this game.
They were awesome. Both of them. Absolutely
incredible.
Immense. Yeah.
Absolutely immense. And, it did feel like Halifax were throwing absolutely everything at them, but those two and Gazdov together they weren't letting it happen. They weren't letting it happen. And that's really a really incredible thing for those players to be able to do so late. This game went into the 113th minute, and they were still able to do that, despite what I'm sure are legs that they could barely feel at the end of it.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Incredible performance. And, people would criticize them. I know Halifax fans were all over social media criticizing Pacific. I get that. You get beat by a team that hardly had the ball, but that was their best route to success. And no one's going to slam Pacific on that, certainly from an independent point of view. This is a team that has played as good as attractive football as they can when they're able to. And this, with everything they've gone through, was what they felt was the best way of getting over the line. Do we expect them to play that way consistently going forward as a team? No. That is not their DNA, but they needed to do that day, and they got the job done. After the game, myself, Jordan Wilson, and Gareth Wheeler caught up immediately with their head coach and manager. Here's James Merriman.
Let's hear from the Pacific manager, James Merriman, joining us pitch side. An emotional 100 minutes of football. Your side left it all out on the field today. How proud are you of the commitment of the performance by your team here today?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. They're an impressive group. They're a frustrated group as well. Everybody's been writing us off. This is a ridiculous trip out here, the travel, to come in and buy into the match plan and be there together 100% and do what we needed to do to get the win and get the result and advance, Now we get to rest, put our legs up, and we'll be ready to go. And I don't think we fear nobody, right? We're back.
James, congrats to you and the boys for a hard-fought but great win. Please talk to us about you switching the mentality formation, 4-4-2. I said primitive. Wheel said progressive. Either way, it's a different Pacific side than we've ever seen. When did this idea come to you? Was it on the plane? Was it in the shower? How did you change this up? We're watching a talented Pacific side that plays tiki-taka football usually, and you guys are throwing elbows and getting grass in the mouth. Just talk to us about what this changed and how this came about.
Honestly, Jordan, it takes a lot of the moments that have happened in the last month, 2 months, but we came out here a while ago, and DJ picked up an injury just before we were gonna come out here and play a 4-4-2 with DJ and Easton up top and play similar to how we did today, because there was a lot of games in a short amount of time, so it wasn't so foreign to what we had planned before. I think it's the moment now. It's knockout football. You advance, so you get that spirit and the collectiveness to buy into it. We made it very difficult. Very, very difficult. Of course, they're going to push towards the end, but we defended very well, very organized. I can't speak enough about our center back pairing and our 20-year-old goalkeeper, to deal with the crowd the way he did and keep his composure. Amazing progression for him.
James, I was going to ask you about your defenders, but you just answered it, so I'll finish on with you. You won this championship with Palmer Dukar in 2021 as his assistant. You've coached in CONCACAF, but where does this rank right now, my friend? Is your right up there? Is it going to be number one for you as a head coach right now so far in terms of the games you've managed over the past couple of years?
Yeah, the championship with Pa, the Whitecaps match with Pa, and I think the Herediano game last year was one of the best games, even though we went out in penalties, and this is right there. This is right there, but now we want more, right?
You guys obviously have the talent combined with belief. It can do incredible things. We're looking forward to what you have in store next week. We'll chat with you then, James. Congratulations. Go rest up and maybe lay back. Enjoy the lengthy travel back to Vancouver Island. The rest is well-deserved. Congratulations. Well done.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, fellas. Thank you. Cheers.
Charlie, there's nothing better than seeing the emotion there. No, that's what it's all about, right? You can see it, you can feel it, and you were right there with it. We're going to get to your interviews in a second, but that's the best part of the job for me. Is just being that, that assist to the person when you hold the mic, you ask the right questions, and then you just get their emotion.
Yeah, 100%. You could see what it meant to the players, going back and slapping James on the back. And I know it's been a tough few weeks for James Merriman. Knowing how the results went for Pacific at the end of the year, is really, really frustrated, right? We've spoken to him several times, and I think this was a really, really big moment for that club, and it just feels like there's so much more positive energy around Pacific than there was literally a week ago, before the 4th-5th game, and at this point, it would be stupid to try and count them out anymore, because they've won 2 in a row, and they've both been very, plucky performance. Not necessarily trademark Pacific wins in the playoffs, but that really doesn't matter at all, does it?
Does not. Don't look now, but here come Pacific. And one of those big players is there again, and that's Manny Aparicio. He caught up with Charlie after this one.
Charlie O'Connor-Clark alongside Manny Aparicio. Manny, 2 wins down, 2 to go. Tell me about that game.
Yeah, crazy all around. We had a hectic schedule to get here. Obviously, with not knowing if we were going to go through York, I guess league and club couldn't really plan too much for it. So and then obviously all the kilometers in between us. So honestly, it was a huge grind to get here. Sleeping in Toronto, getting here last night 7 p.m., waking up and coming straight to the field. Honestly, huge credit and huge. I'm amazed with the guys. The way we grinded through it, the way we put everything into the game. We knew it was going to be a battle. We know what it's like coming here with all these fans and the environment that they have here. So honestly, an amazing feeling to get the win.
Yeah, roughly 60 hours between full time on Wednesday and kickoff here. Yeah. It was 11 a.m. Pacific time when we kicked off. And by the end of this game, you guys had to dig deep. It took everything you had, right?
Yeah, it took everything. It took, I think, almost every player we had here. We all came in and knew what we had to do to start off the game. And then the guys who came off the bench, same thing. They knew that it was a game that they had to come in and run and give everything for the team and for the jersey. And luckily, that's what we did.
I know that at the end of the regular season, it hadn't ended the way that you guys wanted to. But now that you've won these 2 games in a row, I feel like none of that matters anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. It obviously didn't end how we wanted, but we've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. Playoffs is a whole different beast. It's about managing minutes. It's about managing games, managing moments, certain moments in games where you just got to be on top. And so far, so good for us.
Mm-hmm. By the time this goes out, we'll probably know. At the moment, we don't know who you're playing next week, but for you guys, it doesn't necessarily matter. You've just got one more final to go play in.
Yeah, one more final, one more away game. We know we're playing away. We know we're gonna have to travel. We're gonna be tired. We're gonna get jet lag and all those things. But so far it's working in our favor. So far, it's going well for us. So we just take it one game at a time. Whoever it is, we'll be ready for it. We'll be studying them, and hopefully we're on the front foot again.
2 consecutive 1-0 wins for Pacific, who next week will play for a spot in the CPL final. Manny, thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff from Charlie and Manny. And quick one, Charlie. Manny, again, asked to play a different role, but was tremendous.
Yeah, I thought that he maybe quietly had a really, really impressive afternoon in Halifax, especially at the end of the game when he was really the only one with any energy left on the pitch for Pacific, who I don't know where he gets it from. He seems to be able to play every minute when he's healthy and just run forever. And he was a really big part of them winning this game. He was winning balls in midfield. He was, even in stoppage time, he's running the ball to the corner and outpacing defenders. He is the heart and soul of that Pacific team. And when Manny is on his game, they are far more likely to have a good day.
Yeah, definitely. We'll turn our attention to Halifax next, but before, here's some more reaction from their 20-year-old, that's right, only 20-year-old Emil Gazdov after back-to-back clean sheets, 2 in 4 days.
Here with Emil Gazdov, post-game reaction brought to you by Allstate. Emil, 1-0. You guys are playing for a chance to be in the final next week. What a game, right?
Great game. This is the games you live to play for. I mean, the crowd, the atmosphere, the pressure, everything is one of those days.
I know it was a tough journey for you guys from the other coast to get here. Time for this game. Just tell me about the resilience of this team. I know you were tired to stay in that.
No, it's tough, really tough. Like, the travel is insane, but this group right here shows you that we don't stop. We're so determined. We want that final. The season didn't go quite as we wanted, so we make up for it now, and that's what we've been doing.
Tell me about just yourself today. You had a bunch of saves to make. It was not easy at times. You got a little help at times from the woodwork, but you seemed like you were pretty dialed in.
Yeah. I mean, the whole defense is locked in. It's not just me. Amir bailed me out a couple of times. Tommy did well. The whole defense, and that's what we do. We're a unit. We just work.
The regular season didn't end the way that you guys wanted it, but none of that matters right now because you have a chance to play in the final. How excited are you moving on to go to the next round?
You can see how excited we are. It's a big opportunity, and we're ready for it. That's all I can say. We're ready for it. Yeah.
Pacific FC in action again next week. Emil, thanks so much, buddy.
Fantastic interview by Charlie, and of course, shout out to Michael Chisholm as well, who was obviously editing and producing that piece.
Incredibly humbling to see how much taller than me he is.
Yeah, he's a big boy. No, that great moment for him, right? I mean, this is his first professional season. He's been up and down. He got dropped a little bit, but his manager and his team backed him, and so far it's rewarding. It
is, and honestly, this is something that James Merriman as well deserves a lot of credit for, because it's been a tough season for Emil. In the early stages, he's come under a lot of criticism as a young goalkeeper. He had some poor performances, and James Merriman showed a lot of faith in this kid who, he's spoken very highly of all year. He left him in there. He kept him in the goal, and now in the playoffs, it is paying off, which is, I guess, that's what happens when you do believe in a young player and you give them that opportunity and you trust them, and then their confidence just grows. And I think Emil's confidence is at the highest point it's been all season, which is the best time for that.
Every credit. That's what the league's about, is producing young players, and you cannot have quick hooks. And in football, sometimes, I suppose, much like life, people are very quick to judge other people and make decisions right away on people. And Emil Gazdov had a couple of 2 or 3 big moments where it didn't go his way, particularly in highlights if you're watching that, but they've stuck by him. I thought his distribution was tremendous in back-to-back games as well. And every credit to Pacific and Emil Gazdov, who now make it to the semi-final. Let's talk about Halifax before we do and get Charlie's version on them. Let's go back and get some immediate reaction from One Soccer. Here's Patrice Geyser with the panel.
You joined pitchside by Patrice Geyser. Patrice, we're sitting there thinking, man, it's just not Halifax's day. Is that what you kind of felt from your perspective? You did all you could, but the result just didn't fall your way?
Yeah, I mean, we ended up hitting 3 posts, had 2 cleared off the line. I give a lot of credit to our guys that the second half we certainly brought it all we could. And the bounces weren't really going our way. Everything was a bit short, everything was a bit long, and we take the experience. It's really difficult to take it because I still think we did enough to get something out of it, but we didn't. And that's the cruelty or the beautiful part of this game. Depends on which end you're at today.
Patrice, I'm gutted for you. Just the way that Halifax have played football this season, obviously you're a big part of that. But just can you tell us a little bit about what you said at halftime? Because you could see Pacific how they sat everyone behind the ball. What was the game plan going into the second half?
We got punished, so the number one thing we wanted to do is take care of the ball a little bit more, and we felt our football was really predictable. We had too many guys underneath the first line of pressure, so we started to commit more numbers forward. We started playing guys more between lines, and we relied more on wide play, and that's where we got the crossbars out of. We were trying to be a bit different than we were the first half and try to get more numbers forward.
Patrice, it's Christian. I know you say you never want to be too high and never be too low, but I know it's difficult. But is there a chance that, because we probably won't hear from you again live with this season on One Soccer, is there a chance that you can try and summarize this season? Like when you get back to see your lovely wife and kids in the winter, like how will you look back on this day in particular and what the year's been like for you in Halifax?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I'll never forget the first 8 games and, going to places I've never gone, to continue to believe the way we play and the way we do things. We stuck to our principles. I'm so proud of the group for remaining with our identity and continuing to play. I genuinely believe this group has 2 or 3 extremely high elite players that keep moving and moving up. And I wish there were more games that we could have played KJ to see what we're made of. But, I'm really proud of the way we grew. We got better. We learned to manage things. The 46-minute goals were gone. The 90-plus minute goals are gone. So we learned a lot about management, and we learned to stick to our principles and, continue to play football, and hopefully results will go our way and we could go further next year. Can't wait for it.
Well, you said it, Patrice. You have a lot to be proud of. For all that's good off the field, you kind of put the focus and really put Halifax on the map in terms of the way that you play on the field. A lot of credit goes to you and your staff. We appreciate all of your time this season. Heartbreak today, but brighter days are ahead. Thank you so much, Patrice.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
What a class act and what a fantastic addition he's been, not only to Halifax, but the entire Canadian Premier League. Thank you to Patrice Geyser for all his time and all he's done this season. Charlie, you wrote that it's been a storybook season in a sense for Halifax. It certainly has. Not every storybook ends with the perfect finish, and they didn't get the perfect finish this time. But being on the ground, getting the whole emotion as you talk about, how do you summarize their season and maybe what just couldn't get over the line on a marginal day that many other times could have gone the other way?
Yeah, I think that to begin, the Halifax Wanderers have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of for this season. I think that when you have a new coach come in, you have an almost entirely new squad come in at the start of the season. I think that they're well ahead of where they expected to be at one season in under Patrice Geyser. And I think he's said that several times, like when they clinched a playoff spot.
They have to be, right? They have to be.
Of course. The number of players that weren't even playing professionally last year are in there. It's just incredible the way that team came together, and not just came together in a way that they could grind out, kind of ugly results. They would sit back or anything like that. They played some very entertaining football at times this year, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do in your first year under a head coach in a new environment. So all the credit in the world to them. This was a day where it as we've mentioned, just didn't fall for them. And the thing that is maybe a shame, I mean, we don't cheer for any team in our department on this podcast, but you could feel that if one of those balls had gone into the net, that stadium was about to explode. Right. And it was going to be a truly magical moment in that community. And, it's a bit of maybe a little bit of a what if kind of situation for Halifax. But honestly, I think that this is the first, and you'll never get another first home playoff game, but there will be others at the Wanderers grounds and probably in the not too distant future, not this year, but very well probably next year. It just feels like they're on a really, really, really solid trajectory at the moment. And I'm really excited to see this team play football again. I mean, for me, I'm if anything, sad that we don't get to see this team anymore this year, right? Because they have been one of the best stories in the league this year. It's been an incredible year, and there was a lot of emotion in the players and the fans after. But so many fans stuck around after the game, and players took probably about half an hour walking around the whole pitch, greeting every single fan that came over to the boards on the side to talk to them. And you can just see how special what is happening in Halifax is on and off the pitch. So, again, nothing for that team to be ashamed of, and a disappointing day. But once they kind of take some time and look back on it, they will probably have a lot to be proud of from this year.
Undoubtedly, as you said, a storybook season. None of us get to control the scripts. It wasn't the script they wanted. In the end, the storyline was just simply hosting the game, and a marvelous day in that. They didn't get the outcome that they needed, but those outcomes will come. Definitely will come in years to come, and maybe just in a year to come. As you said, the trajectory is definitely going the right way. And I am just absolutely thrilled for that community, that wonderful city, and that fantastic province, and how much football that is now there, and how much joy they get from it. And they have come so far this year to get entertained to the level what they've gone. And now that, they will become a perennial threat, no doubt about it, going forward. But there is just something about sports that reminds us that sometimes you cannot rush that, and you have to learn to lose in order to then know how to learn to win. And that's just where they're at right now. Pacific, Forge, Cavalry, the three teams left, just have a little bit more experience. And that will come now, and a lot of those players will be back next season, and more continuity, both on the bench and on the pitch. Daniil Henry was one of the significant additions as well, and he's been a brilliant addition to Halifax on and off the field as well. And after this one, Charlie got to speak with the Canadian international.
Joined now by Daniil Henry of Halifax Wanderers. Daniil, that's not the result you guys were hoping for. Just tell me about this game, because it felt like maybe soccer gods starting on your side today.
Yeah, but let's take every positive out of it. First time having a playoff at home. The supporters of this club have been amazing since I've came here. I'm so thankful, and they came out in numbers today. I thought that we played really, really well. I want to thank the owners, Derek, Matt, Patrice, everybody put their effort in tonight. The boys were amazing tonight. We had spells where I thought, of course, we could have won 2 or 3, but sometimes this is football. So we take the positives out of today, and we get back stronger for next season. So definitely looking forward to what the future has, especially with the plans of the stadium and everything expanding here. So thank you, Halifax. It's been amazing this year.
Absolutely. Dan Nimick just told us a story about how when you were looking at signing at this club, they were in 8th place. Yeah. You finished the season 3rd, tied for 2nd on points. It was a pretty special run for you guys, wasn't it?
Very special run. We're heading back from Winnipeg. I was just going through my pictures, and I remember it was June 7th when Patrice and I were talking and trying to figure out what's the best move for me. So I started watching more games, and when I checked the standings, we were dead last.
Yeah.
But when I watched games, I noticed that it wasn't a team that was 8th place caliber. This was a team that was very unlucky and just needed a few things to get this thing ignited, and we definitely showed it. So definitely proud of the boys, and listen, we can hold our heads down, or not hold our heads down, but be upset with the result. But if we weren't, then of course we shouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously it was a big decision for you at that point to come out here to Halifax, come to the CPL at all. It's the season just ended, but tell me maybe your quick impressions of what this experience has been like in the early days.
Yeah, like anything that you believe in, it takes work. Mm-hmm. It takes commitment. I can kind of relate it to when John took over the national team, and the transition of dark days and trying to figure out what's going to take this team to be great. But what we didn't have in experience, we had in work rate, and we were fearless. And I see a lot of those qualities in this chamber. So I'll be looking forward to seeing where we go with next.
Lastly, just this stadium today, it felt like it was so ready to explode if one of those had gone in. Just tell me about the atmosphere here and how special this day was for this club and community.
Yeah, I had no idea that they had a football culture like this in Halifax. I was surprised. From my debut here, when we beat Ottawa, I think 1-0, Theo scored the goal. So today, they've always been out here in numbers, rain or shine, standing by us, and it's good to show our respects and make sure that when the games are done, we always give it back to our fans.
Yeah, it's still a special day in Halifax, but unfortunately the end of the road for 2023. Daniil, thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Daniil, as ever, very gracious with his time. It should be mentioned, though, afterwards, he did receive a red card along with Pacific FC's Kunle Dadaluk in the official match report. It said that Daniil received a red card for violent conduct and Kunle Dadaluk using offensive, insulting, or abusive language and or gestures. So we'd imagine that would be tried to be appealed. We'll see about Kunle's availability for the next 2 games, but Daniil Henry, red card suspension. Who knows whether that'll be carry on next year if he's back. But Charlie, he was here and he played 14 games for Halifax Wanderers. I think just 3 starts, but his impact on the pitch was obviously very important, but off it was, unmatched. Really, you just couldn't put any kind of numbers or any kind of value to it. It was incredible.
100%, and I don't think I'd say that a lot, but until I got on the ground in Halifax this weekend and to see it in person, I don't think it fully hit me how much of an impact he does have on this club. I mean, just the staff at the stadium that, he's only known for a couple of months. He comes in and he hugs every single one of them. Every player that he speaks to, every teammate. It's just incredible to see how that leadership kind of impacts this club. Obviously, a very young defensive back at this team as well. And for a guy like Daniil Henry to come in and to teach players like Dan Nimick and Cale Lockery and all these players has been incredibly valuable for this team. And I think these players all have long careers and probably quite impressive careers ahead of them. And to have had this experience at the ages of 22, 21 for a lot of them is going to be valuable for them individually and for this club going forward.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Thank you, Charlie. Great work as ever. And continue to read Charlie's stuff at campl.ca. Pacific's victory means we are down to 3 teams left in the pursuit of the North Star Cup. In Calgary, it was first versus second in a qualifying semifinal. The winner will be hosting the final, and the loser move on to host the semifinal. Mitchell Tooney was all over this one for us. Mitch, thanks for waiting and being patient. Great to see you as ever. The new playoff format has had a remarkable impact on the competitive nature of the regular season, but this is new territory. We didn't really know how 1 versus 2 would play out, but in the end, it felt big and important, didn't it? Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the biggest compliment you can maybe pay this game is the fact that it felt like an elimination match in terms of the intensity and the spectacle with which it was played. You always get that a little bit between these two sides, but it was at the next level because of what was on the line in terms of hosting the final. And thought Cavalry, they came out looking great and were excellent out of the gate at home. But Forge in maybe a different look, suffered a little bit at the start of the match, but were able to survive and then take advantage of a Cavalry mistake on a corner kick in the 29th minute, a goal that they really were not happy about, conceding there. And then an outstanding second goal from Forge, Reza Rama with the back heel, Noah Jensen's layoff. And then I thought Jordan Wilson did a really excellent job on the One Soccer broadcast of breaking down why that was such an impressive finish from Kyle Becker on the half volley. Calgary wake up after that, and get a goal through Joe Mason on a set piece of their own. But at the end of the day, a 23rd time in 25 meetings between these two that's either decided by a single goal or ends in a draw, showing how close the margins have been. But what's really been the difference between these two sides has been how they've done in the postseason. And again, Forge get the job done, and not only do they get to advance to their 5th final, but they'll be hosting that as well.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, you just alluded to it. These are the 2 heavyweight kings of the Canadian Premier League. They just are. I mean, we give Pacific a lot of time in the due. They won the 2021 and they got there, but for them to be matched up again in the playoffs is always special. And they played it up and they played up to the role. And I thought it was a fantastic game of football. Tactically, so much to get into as well. Coaches and agents messaging me just how high level a game it was. We'll get into the Cavalry side shortly, Mitch, but let's talk Forge because, well, they do it again. Bobby spoke about keeping his team hungry and motivated is always a bit of a challenge. This was not a challenge for them. This was not a problem on this day to get them motivated. What impressed you the most about them and the ability to win again?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was intriguing to hear Bobby kind of open up a little bit about how much they have struggled at times this year to find that motivation. He used the great Michael Jordan as an example, and how even Michael Jordan took a little bit of time away from basketball to come back and kind of have his second chapter. And we know some of the stories about Michael Jordan and some of the stories he had to make up for himself to kind of stay motivated and, completely fabricate something that an opponent said to him to find that within himself to stay at the top. But I do think mentally, Forge came into this game and got it completely right in terms of approaching this like a game that they couldn't lose. Like there was no tomorrow for them. And really, I think they needed this match just to prove to themselves that they still were at that level. Cavalry have done that all season, proving to them, proving that they are the top team, at least over 28 games in the CPL. Forge haven't really done that this year. So, I was really impressed with that. I thought they were really clinical in the moments they needed to be, which is something they've also had issues with this year, and in scoring those 2 goals. And the negatives of success is you have to create those internal motivations, but the benefit is, of course, the amount of players that they have that know how to win these matches. And, with the injury to Woobens Pasillas, you bring in Noah Jensen, who's obviously started in a CPL final. You lose Mandrakar James early in the second half, and you're able to bring on Dom Samuel, who's played in 3 CPL finals, or played in all 4 CPL finals, started in 3 of them. So when you're the player and you can look to the left at your right and know that, you have these guys who are confident in these moments, that has to be incredible. And, again, they get the job done when it matters most.
Yeah, they really do. And that's an incredible intangible skill of a leadership team that they've got there. You could see it as you mentioned it. They weren't intimidated at all. Mandrakar James played a lot of big games. Tristan Henry's there again, Janssen and Becker, and Campbell's played a lot of big games. Schwanier came on. So really, really very, very impressive performance. With more on some reaction, let's go back to our friends at One Soccer and some post-game immediate reaction. Here's Bobby Smirniotis with the panel.
Success. And let's go back to ATCO Field right now. And the man that oversees it all is Bobby Smirniotis. Bobby, ho-hum, I told you this is Forge season, and your side once again delivers. What was the key to success today?
Your prediction pre-match. I think you called it yourself. So please do it again in 2 weeks. No, all fun aside, I think tactically we did an excellent job today. The guys put in a shift. We've created a lot of opportunities. Probably would have hoped to have a third goal. But these matches are always excellent, and there was another excellent match for both of our teams in the league.
Bobby, congrats on the win and congrats on the performance. I know you're a tactician. I know we can sit down and over a coffee or whatever you want to drink and talk about footy all the time. I know this is something that's so important with you. Tactics is how you play. In the next 2 weeks, I think you have a problem on your hands of the 11 that you'd like to play. Because Noah Jensen tonight stepped up. Her job report in the middle looked good. I guess the question I'm going to ask you is, who are you leaning to? Who did you really like today, and who performed really well outside of a Kyle Becker? Just give us some names that you thought were exceptional that are really going to make your job hard in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you mentioned one of them right off the bat there. Noah Jensen did an excellent job for us. His energy in the midfield, his ability to carry the ball. He did a great job finding the pockets that we had read pre-game. And the guys found them very well, and they gave us good opportunities to attack in the open field. And I thought he was tremendous. And this is a guy that's showing up in some big games for us. So he's obviously, we know, somebody we can count on. We've got a lot of depth in this squad, but everyone's got to step up at some point. Today we're missing one of our top scorers in Woobens Pasillas, and Noah's done an excellent job. I thought Benny Badibanga was very good in giving us a release going forward. Maybe we got a penalty there. I haven't seen it. I thought he was very good in that second half and pushing us forward and trying to give us another dimension in the attack. And then our defenders were just resilient. We're super today, and that's what's needed in these games, because apart from tactics, you need that will and desire, and we had that today.
Yeah, you certainly did, Bobby. We all thought it was a penalty as well, by the way. I would ask you about Kyle Becker, and feel free to answer about him if you like, because I know you've talked about him a lot. But the other thing I want to ask you is about that desire of lifting a trophy at home now. You've accomplished so much in your tenure in Hamilton. Your record speaks for itself, arguably one of the finest coaches we have in this country. But how much of that vocabulary will be spoken about now, the desire to try and do something you've not done before and lift it inside Tim Hortons field, something you've not yet done?
Yeah, I think that's what we always try and find. As a coaching staff, we always try and find that different layer of motivation, because one of the toughest things in our job here at Forge is keeping these guys striving for the top. It's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Here we are, 5th year. So you need to come up with different things, and here's a perfect one to do it. Our fans are excellent. They've been behind us. They've celebrated on the road with us. They've seen us travel all over the place. It'd be great to get this one done at home.
Yeah, a lot different this time around than 2021. Rather than 2 days to prepare, now you have 2 weeks to prepare. So next weekend, you get to sit back and enjoy, watch Cavalry play Pacific. Do you want Cavalry again at home or Pacific to kind of make amends for what happened in 2021?
The one thing I make sure I never do is think about an opponent or pick an opponent, because you know what? On that day, it's everyone. So once we get them on Saturday, we'll start working on that tactical plan for that game, and we'll give our best foot forward as we usually do in these final matches.
I tried my best right there. Congratulations. You're going back to another Canadian Premier League final. Well done. Well played. Safe travels, Bobby. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Great job.
Thank you, guys.
Great job by Bobby Smirniotis. Quite honest as ever. A couple of questions on Forge. One from the chat. Alexander asks, Forge were the consensus favorites coming into this season. Does their second place finish and making it to the final make this a successful season, or is it a North Star Cup or bust? For me, Mitch, it's North Star Cup or bust. If they want to be classed as a successful season, I don't think they have any interest in just making a final.
No, I do think their ultimate goal is making it to the CONCACAF Cup, but at this stage, I think that they'll want to lift a trophy and lift a trophy in front of the home fans. So I think the Forge seasons are defined by silverware at this point, and if they don't end up with any, then it's a disappointing season.
They are confirmed as hosts of the CPL final, which will be taking place at Tim Hortons Field on Saturday, October the 28th at 6 p.m. Get your tickets now. Mitch, they won just 4, though, of 14 home games this season. Had won 3 of just their last 10 in all competitions before this past weekend. No matter, though, who they play, should they now be considered favorites? What do you think?
I think it's foolish to bet against Forge in the playoffs at this point. They've now played 12 CPL postseason games, including the Island games. They have 9 wins, just 1 loss. Outscored their opponents 16-6. Never allowed more than a single goal. 6 clean sheets. It's just an incredible level of dominance. And one of the big stories, obviously, leading into this will be how they deal with that layoff. And Bobby Smirniotis admitted after the game that he hates days off, but 14 days for Forge to dial in their tactical plan. I think it works out nicely where they kind of get 7 days to really work on themselves, and then 7 days knowing who the opponent is to kind of tweak that setup based on who they're going to be playing, and crucially 14 days to recover key players. We don't know what the status is of Mandikar James and Wimbins Pacias, but we did see David Chouanier there at the end, and if you have him available even off the bench in the final, that's an absolute game changer. So that's critical for them. And as Bobby said at the end of that interview there, I think they have an easy motivation for this one, which is lifting the North Star Cup in front of their home fans for the first time. So I think regardless of who they play, it's going to be a fascinating final with so many storylines, but I think they have to be considered the favorite.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny how things change, though. No, I mean, Cavalry won the league by 13 points. Complete and utter domination. They were by far and away the best team this season, but just lost narrowly in a marginal game. What went wrong, if anything? What was your thoughts on the Cavs' performance?
Yeah, I think those margins just get so much thinner in the postseason, where during a regular season you can have a bad game or a bad half, but if you have a bad 20 minutes in a postseason game, a single match, it costs you dearly. And I thought really the 23 or so minutes, and Calgary echoed this after the match, in between the 2 goals, they just didn't offer enough. They had no shot attempts in general during that time. And the first goal, obviously, they're not happy with in terms of conceding it on a set piece. Carducci could have cleared it potentially. They didn't deal well enough with having Hajaberpour in that position to put pressure on their goalkeeper. And, then allowing the second goal, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. said it after the match. These games are always defined by, a 1-goal difference. So a 2-goal cushion is a real mountain to climb when you're playing against Forge or Cavalry in these games. So to their credit, they almost climbed it. Camargo hits a crossbar. Musi puts one wide of the net that half the stadium thought was in for a good 30 seconds. But, that determination's a positive. But at the end of the day, going down 2 goals in a playoff match, you're not going to win many of them.
Yeah, and you have been almost quarterbacking this stat for a long time, how fast Cavalry start games as well. And they, they just didn't get a lead, which is unusual. In fact, I think it was the first time in almost 15 months since July of last year that they went in down 1-0 at halftime at home. That was a real rarity as well. So every credit to Forge to be able to pull that around. With some more reaction, let's go back to the One Soccer panel. Here is Cavalry head coach Tommy Wheeldon Jr.
Cavalry really pushed late, had their fair share of chances as well. Let's chat with their manager, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Tommy, what went wrong today? What was the missing ingredient that maybe wasn't able to get you guys over the line in this one, which was a very competitive game?
I think it was decided by the first goal, and it's a soft one when we reflect back at it. Marco even talked about at half-time that we should have not even had the corner to begin with, and then the response wasn't what we used to. But once that second goal, and it was a bit of quality from Kyle Becker, that's the difference. Our number 10 hits the crossbar, bounces down, we score, we keep going. And they do a great job of managing the game and killing the steam. But we're not going to get too. It's not an elimination game, so what we've got to do is take the learnings out of this one and move on to the next one.
Tommy, I mentioned last week that you're brave and your side come out to play. You don't feel any way shell-shocked looking at you. You're saying, look, we just got to take care of business. We might just have to do it the long way. Do you feel as if today that you guys just weren't as sharp on the ball as you normally were? Do you think that kind of led to your demise and not having the win today?
I think of it this way, Wilsh. The first 15-20 minutes, Mushi's had a breakaway. We've had a couple of good half chances. We probably had the first bet of that. And then they changed the game with a corner, and goals in this tight of a playoff change games. I was disappointed with the lads, and I shared that half-time about the response after goal. I thought we could have been braver. So second half, we had a go, and we've had two chances one end and Kyle Becker's quality the other end. But then the response came, and all I'll talk to the lads is it came a little bit too late, and I think we're in there. So I'm not struggling or suffering through this. We know we can play well. We've shown we've finished, got the crowd off their feet. We just get another game week next week.
Yeah, Tommy, I was going to ask you about that. You've obviously deserved this one moment where you can have a bit of a blip. That's the whole purpose of this new playoff format in terms of getting that opportunity again. I think it's just your eighth home loss in any game in 5 years, by the way, there in the CPL play. And you've not lost back-to-back games all season long. So is it worth saying that if you were going to have a blip, this was the game to do it on? And the fact that you've been the best team for a long time, that you've still got 2 games to win and get to a final and win it?
Yeah, and that's the playoff format, isn't it? We knew with this one we'd have loved to have played at home in front of our fans. They deserve it. They've been terrific this year, and that was our moment. And maybe there was that one where Forge needed this one. They needed to win. We've already got it, and that's what I'll dissect with the players. But I'm not concerned because they'll go out next week. Sometimes you look the Valor loss. We were 2-0 up at half-time. Everyone's saying what went wrong. Look at the response our lads had because they were counted out, and that's what I'm going to lean on here is these moments make you better.
Well, another familiar foe comes to ATCO Field next weekend, Pacific Cavalry. We're already looking forward to that. Best of luck moving forward, Tommy, and we'll chat again next week. Thanks for this.
All right, thank you. Cheers, bye.
Tommy Wheeldon Jr.
Thanks to Tommy for his time there as well. And congratulations on breaking news in the CPL as Tommy Wheeldon Jr. of Cavalry FC, Bobbis Miniotis of Forge FC, and Patrice Geyser of the Halifax Wanderers have been nominated for the 2023 CPL Coach of the Year. Of course, that'll be fantastic to see who wins that. And that goes, I believe, next Thursday, Matchday -2 in Hamilton on Thursday, October the 26th, as part of the festivities surrounding the CPL final. More on Cavalry from Mitchell in a second, but let's get some player reaction from the press conference. Let's hear from Dan Klump.
A bad day at the office, I wouldn't say that. I think we played a pretty decent game, especially the first 15-20 minutes. I think we definitely dominated the game up until the goal. And like we said already in the locker room, it took us too long to react and get back to ourselves again after the goal. And I blame it on myself for not lifting up the team. And but yeah, I think we started pretty good. Then had one moment, and then the second half, I think we created enough chances to get back into it. And then Joe Mason with a great header, putting us back, and I think lift the hope for all the fans in the stadium. And just unfortunate to not make the equalizer in the last 5-10 minutes.
Mitch Clunt would go on to say they will be even more motivated next week. Cavalry now play Pacific at home in a repeat of the 2021 CPL semi-final. Almost 15 months since they lost back-to-back home games. They just beat Pacific on the final day of the regular season overwhelmingly by 3-0. How big of a favorite will be they in this one? And I'd imagine most people would expect them to still win that game to get to the final.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can throw those final day of the season matches out the window because they're meaningless, but this wasn't necessarily the case because Pacific really wanted to win that one in terms of, moving up to a higher seeding. So based on recent evidence, and I think it's 15-point gap between the two sides in the table this year. I think you have to make Cavalry the favorites going into that. And, this is an opportunity they've never really been afforded where they get a true second chance in the postseason under the new format. Before it was, say there's a second leg, but there's always away goals and that kind of thing to contend with, where this is truly a complete second chance and they have a full opportunity to turn things around. And maybe the one question is the mentality, in the sense that Pacific have now played 2 straight matches where they absolutely had to win to extend their season, and Cavalry haven't played in such a match this year. But I think this Cavalry group's proven that they can get up for big games and have responded really well to any disappointment that they've had to suffer this year. So they've talked a lot about rewriting records, and this is a chance to kind of have a do-over the 2021 season where, if they can beat Pacific in the semifinals, they would go to a final in Hamilton. And, a bit of a weird one here where, Cavalry had to cheer for Forge against Pacific late in the season because they wanted to clinch the CPL Shield. And now Forge, while Bobby didn't quite admit to it, I think they'll probably be cheering for Cavalry, because if Cavalry win, they lock up a spot in the CONCACAF Cup after finishing second in the CPL season, kind of regardless of what happens in that final. So that's an interesting thing to watch for in that one as well. But I think you have to consider Cavalry the favorites.
Yeah, and if Cavalry are able to win it, then that gives an opportunity, as you said, that every other team has taken by winning a CPL final away from home. So that'll be something we can continue to look. In fact, I think through 13 true playoff knockout games in the playoffs, only 3 home wins. So it's certainly tilted towards the form of the away team in a lot of these knockout games in the CPL so far. Great work, Mitch. Thanks as ever. And of course, we can catch all your work at CanPL.ca. We end the show by taking a look at the playoff format and where we stand. And it's almost done. It's getting closer and closer. As we know now, Forge will host that final on Saturday, October the 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern. Tickets available now at Tim Hortons Field. That should be an absolute cracker, and they'll be hosting either Cavalry or Pacific. That semifinal goes this Saturday. Tickets available now in Calgary at the 21st at 2 o'clock local time, 4 o'clock Eastern. Of course, all these games live on our friends at One Soccer. Should be a fantastic schedule to look ahead to the final days of the season as well. And looking forward to what has been a brilliant postseason to continue with 2 more games. We end this week hearing from a man who knows all too well the importance of games this time of the season. Forge fans love him. Cavalry fans likely loathe him. What is not split, though, is the admiration and form of the skipper in Hamilton, Cal Becker, who showed once again class is permanent. We'll leave you with Becca and some words of wisdom when it comes to see just how important games are this time of the year. Have a good week.
I don't know. The only thing I can think about is the message I said to the guys before the game. When you're growing up, you want to play in massive games like this. But the reality is when you're a professional, playoff games, games for trophies don't come around too often, so you got to cherish them. And we've been lucky enough to now going into the 5th final of Forge FC. It's awesome. This is stuff you play on your front lawn about, play in the backyard about when you're growing up, and I don't know, it's just fun.